Test. It's not sold.
So this is supposed to be a panel debate. Let's see if I have anything to debate about. That's going to be interesting. But I think the main reason why we're here is because, as you know, this festival, this Café Theatre Festival, is a series of several festivals. We've already had one in New York. We're having one in Oslo now. We'll have one in Germany with Stefan in December. Yeah. And then we'll end up in the Netherlands. And of course, a very, very important player in this Café Theatre project is Theatre Angels. And Teresa sits at the end there. We'll talk a little bit more about that. She's here from the company of Angels. And we thought it would be a very interesting opportunity to compare some notes, to talk about what is actually theatre for young, what kind of different practices that the different countries have maybe, the different companies have, other differences, similarities. What do we mean by theatre for young? Is this what we've seen? Is this theatre or plays for young? Is there a reason why we have such a word as theatre for young, or such a way of phrasing it? And also maybe talk a little bit practical about our theatre work. I mean, theatre, of course, is an artistic thing, but it's first and foremost an artistic practice. It's something we do, and we don't just do it ourselves, we do it for somebody. And in this case, the somebody. The agents are doing it for somebody, and who are the agents that are somebody? They are the young. So maybe we should talk a little bit about the young as well. It would be lovely. Okay? Now I'm going to sit down. We have invited 4 people for the panel, 4 very interesting people in the field of theatre for young. Close to me is the young, flamboyant, and very, very experienced Mikael Ramløse from Theatre Fair Play in Denmark. Then we have Stefan Fischer-Fels from Gips Theatre in Germany. And then we have Anders Almark from Teater Fredag in Sweden. And Teresa Ariosto from UK and Company of Angels at the end. I think it's a beautiful little quartet we have. And all of them have been working in this field for a very long time, and also inside a tradition, I think. They are not working only as companies with their own identity, they're also a part of a long tradition of working with theatre and also with playwriting for young in modern times, in what we call modern playwriting. So I think it would be very interesting if you could see very quickly, briefly, a little bit about the philosophy behind your work and why you're doing it and what it is. And we start with Teresa and the Company of Angels.
Well, Company of Angels is a company that has been going for 12 years, and our strapline says that we foster and produce challenging theatre for young audiences. So clearly young audiences are our core. And we also work a lot with emerging artists and theatre makers to try to get them in the field of theatre for young audiences and get them enthusiastic about working for and with younger people. My personal experience in theatre for younger audiences started years earlier, before moving to the UK. I'm actually Italian, as you probably heard from my name. And I started working at the Italian Theatre Institute at the Department of Theatre for Children and Young People. And actually, I must say, I was one of those people I wanted to work in theatre. I started there as a placement, and they placed me in the Theatre for Young People department. And I must confess, I was those ones who said, God, really, in this department did you have to put me? That's terrible. And then I started working there, and as you can see, I'm still here because I was totally entranced, and I wouldn't leave it. I wouldn't leave this field for anything. And I went on working there in that department, and then I went to Switzerland, and I worked in Switzerland at programming an international theatre festival for young audiences, and then to the UK. So I have maybe quite a European experience, and that's also why, that a Company of Angels, we place a lot of emphasis on international work and European plays and European playwriting. So we work a lot with plays in translation. We also work with UK writers, and what we are trying to do lately is a lot getting this interaction going between English playwrights and European playwrights, and that's also one of the reasons why the European Writers Lab, which is attached to this Theatre Café, was born. And also that's the starting point for Theatre Café, which was funded in 2004 by Company of Angels, and it was all about bringing European plays to the UK.
For young people.
For young people.
Yeah.
Well, for young people, suitable for young people. I mean, many of the plays that we have had at Theatre Café over the 10 years of its life haven't been specifically written for young people. As we've heard yesterday from the, Björn and Tiago and Jorge, I mean, they have been written for an audience to be seen, and then they maybe have captured the imagination of young people in their own countries, and then we try to bring them over and push them to the UK audiences and theatres.
So we'll return to that question later on, I think. What is the question suitable and for young people? I also think it's very interesting that you specifically use the word challenging.
Yeah.
And can you just say because I think it has something to do with your practice, what is it that you mean by challenging?
Well, that in a way links, and Adam has been John Director with me at Company of Angels for 2 years, and we mean where you can challenge it with subject matter and you can challenge in form, but I mean, I would say that is normally trying to give young people and to get young people exposed to things that maybe some people would think are not for them, but try to broaden the horizon and not to be prescriptive on what young audiences can see.
So, Anders,
yes,
you're based in Stockholm, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about your practice, your theatre, your work?
The company is called Teater Fredag, in English Theatre Friday, and we have no own theatre. We have just a rehearsal space, and we open up all our shows in Stockholm, and we do about 20% of our shows in the Stockholm area, and then we tour the rest of Sweden and Finland, because we're playing for the Swedish-talking audience in Finland. So, and our goal is to make theater which is not done before in Sweden. So we're looking for new material. It could be Swedish, it could be from abroad, and it seems like it has been much more from other countries. When I look on the material I want to do, it has to be, I had to cry or I had to laugh when I really want to get involved with it, and when you're doing theater for this kind of people who are, it's such a big demand. You really had to come up with something. You can't just do theater just because it's theater. And my experience, it goes back, way back. For one of my first artistic, experience was when I saw TV theater, which was every Wednesday, and I don't know if I was 6 or 5, and I saw Waiting for Godot. And I think that it changed my life, actually. I think that was really good children play. I mean...
in television?
In television, yeah. And I thought, I really want to see something I don't know anything about. Because nowadays, it's so much discussion about, do they understand this? And I'm not interested in that. I don't want to do things that they understand. What's the point of doing things they do understand? So, I mean, I think it's very I mean, the young, we're playing for an audience who have seen everything and know everything. I mean, you can't. I do remember once I came back from a festival and I've seen Umbilical Brothers, and I was talking to my son about. I know them, he said. I mean, so you must come up with something which makes them engaged, and I don't think you can do anything which is engaging if you're not involved yourself.
And just to be very precise, them are people from a certain age, or what kind of group, or who are they, them?
We have done most of the shows from 10 years. And we actually, when a play has been done in the south of Europe, and they used to have 14 years, we used to do it from 12 years. And there is a lot of discussion going on, are they too young or not? But my feeling is that a young audience nowadays, they know the dramaturgy so very well. I mean, they don't even have to look because they know what's going to happen very often.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I think we opened up some questions already that we want to debate later on. I think maybe we might even have a debate, which would be very good. But then we know a little bit about you. You yourself are both directing and in some curating this theatre, finding the pieces and sort of putting the strategies out for the performances.
I started as an actor.
Yeah.
And I was working on the big institutions, and then I realized I was just a number. And I thought, I want to do more. I want to decide. I want to be in charge of what my feeling was, I can't be in a play if I not want to be in the play. It's not going to be good. So I started to produce shows, and we very often collaborate, do co-productions with these institutions now.
Yeah. So you both do your own productions and co-produce.
Yes.
Good.
And
I think we have
sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you have a certain feeling about what, and you have your own house.
No, I wouldn't say my own house. We have our own rehearsal space, and we have office and things like that, and there are 2 or 3 different theatres in Stockholm we used to open up on.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Stefan.
Yeah.
For me, it's like we all know it. I don't think that youth theatre and even children's theatre would be the same in this Norway without Grips. It's a fundamental part of our knowledge about it. Yeah.
So I don't need to say anything.
Yes, you do, because I want to hear it from you.
I come from a theatre which totally wants to be understood, which wants to, which says that children and young people have a big effort to understand what they are, what their life is, and what society is around. So the complexity of society and their life is the subject of our theatre, and we want them to know more about it. It's the founder of the emancipatory theatre, and since 2011, I am the artistic director of this theatre, and I want to give new impulses to this idea of emancipatory theatre. But the main thing is we want take theatre as a means to understand society better and more, and do this by playwrights and plays which are first performed in Grips Theater. So the playwrights are in the center of our work. One of them is here. Lutz Hübner is one of the most important writers of the Grips Theater, and this is the main thing. It is for children and young people, and we have an own house, and we play for about 90,000 people in Berlin every year. So it's a big house, and this has a long history.
Yeah. Shall we say just a few words about the history? When was it founded?
It was founded in the students' movement of 1968 in Berlin. In Germany, it was a very important time because The old fathers, Nazi fathers, were blown away by the students of the who had new ideas and who pushed new ideas in the society of Germany, in the so-called democracy of Germany, and really tried to make a democracy out of Germany. And the Gripstheater was a child of this movement, and really tried to take theater as a means to change society, which still is for me the most important motivation of the work of theater makers, to really not only to make arts or to make things for ourselves, but to mean the audience and to make them think about their lives and about thinking about that society can be changed. I think this is important in the moment. We have many years discussions about aesthetic changes and performative arts and post-dramatic things and so on. And I think we are now coming back. The problems are so big, the issues are so unsolved that theater has to have its meaning, its point in this society. So we have to stand. There's a big crisis in the adult theater in Germany. It's about a legitimation. Why? For whom are we playing? The adult theater a little bit lost its audience. It's only a little elitaire class of 5% of people who go to the theater, and the question of audience development is the main question of the state theaters. This has never been the problem of the children's theater, because in the well-organized German children's theater, we know for who we play and we know how to reach them. We have a very strong contact to the schools, and 70% of our audience are organized by the schools. The question for me is where I would love to learn more, maybe from the Norwegian, from the other European countries, is the 30% who come from our families. How do you reach all the families, and how do you reach young people who don't go by school? This is for me an unsolved question, and I would love to hear models about that. Only one model, as last point, we try in Berlin to, we ask because our dream is to have a theater for all young people, not only for those who also go to the opera house, but also for those who are not by their parents going to the opera house. So this is our aim. And where can we get the first contact with these people? And it's not so easy to find, except for school. So the families, where are the families going, and where can we put them? And we made a project, or we are making a big project with the was heißt Kinderärzte, the children's doctors in Berlin. About 280 children's doctors are having all the children in their praxis because of certain Untersuchungen, certain examinations. And in this examination, they write a receipt and they say, it's not only important that you are healthy, it's also important that once a year you go to theater for your health. And this is sponsored by a health insurance. And I think this is a way, like normal, and they can decide, the doctors can decide who they give this receipt to health theater, to heal by theater. So they decided, and we have about more than 1,000, 2,000 people every year who come through the doctor to the theater. So we are a sort of medicine, and we are very proud of it.
Age? What age?
2 to 100.
2 to 100. Okay.
I have to explain that because the Gripstheater has a third of the Gripstheater is a so-called evening Abendspielplan. That means we play in the evening for more than 100 performances every year. We play in the evening in our big theater.
Open performances.
It's open performances, and the people want to see. It's very popular, Gripstheater. They want to see this kind of theater, entertaining, politically, socially relevant theater. And they come by free, and not only by the doctors, but also free, willing, in the evening, which is really the dream of a youth theater, that people they get the impulse by the schools. We need that, absolutely. but then decide to go to theater as they go to something else.
I have a question there.
Yes.
Oh, well, you have to wait because
I have
we
many
have
questions
to.
about that.
We have so many questions,
Okay.
but we have to look at Denmark.
I'll be brief though.
Yeah. If you can
Theat-
move your microphone.
Yeah,
up
but
there.
it
I know.
keeps dropping down. I'll
Better?
sit like, I'll do like that. Very thoughtful looking. Theatre Fairplay, where I work, is an old theatre founded in 1972. We do children's and young people's theatre. Basically, it's script-based. All the performances are written either by me or my colleague, or we get some writers from the outside. We work in our own house, and we tour all over Denmark, mostly in schools, libraries, and so on, and sometimes abroad. That's what we do. And then I just want to refer you to, there are some interviews in the program. We all gave interviews, all the writers gave interviews. You may have noticed a very interesting thing, that Jörg and I think exactly the same on the difference between writing for adults and writing for children and young people. That is because it is Jörg's text which is actually used as my text too, as that question in the program. So if you don't understand what I mean, ask Jörg what he meant by that Hammond and piano. And
I
so
have it
on.
here. Should I read it or shall we ask you?
No, don't answer. No, just we answered some questions, and by mistake, your answer on this difference between writing for adults and children has also become mine in the print. So, and I don't mean that. You mean that. Just to make
So
that
this
clear.
This is
So-
your opinion.
And
eh?
so yes, so I would explain. My thought was, what did I really write at that time for the program?
Yeah,
And
please.
I don't remember
You
it.
don't remember it.
I don't remember
Yeah,
it.
we'll try and refresh
So-
your memory.
But I want to say about it that I write specifically for young people. I don't write just, I won't say just, but I don't write for everybody. I write for young people.
Because yesterday, when we talked to the writers, they said, they even phrased it, I think, I don't know if that's intended, but they say it could be underestimating your audience if you write for young people. So I think it was phrased, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that I write my piece, and then if it's suitable for young people, then that's good. But you would say that you would write specifically with young people in your mind, or in...
Yes,
yeah.
but I wouldn't think so much that it should be in a language that was absolutely simple, or whatever you think when you speak about writing for young people. Know something that interests young people, and that can, of course, be interesting for adults too. I mean, the idea is that we have all been young people, we have all been children, and we have adult actors act in it, and they cannot be young. So already there we have the problem, if you want, with naturalism in it, because we know that they are 50 years old or 30 years old, but they should represent on stage a 5-year-old boy, for instance. So you have to find ways to write to make this plausible and possible for the actor to do. You have to find the forms and so on. And you wouldn't need that if it was for everybody. You would say, no, then you would put a 5-year-old child on stage with his parents instead of writing it. So I'd say, yes, I do write for children and young people.
Yeah, go.
I just wanted to add that even yesterday I wanted to reply to that question of I don't write for young people. It's good if they understand, but I don't write for them. But for me, this is not a program. If you write for young people, you should a little bit think about for who you're writing, and you should know the people and come as near as possible to their thoughts. And so this was, for me, it was not a convincing program for theater for young audiences to not write for them, but by coincidence they will get it.
I would very much like the audience comments as well, but I mean, let's hear Anders and Teresa first. What do you think? Do you agree with this gentleman that it is a difference writing with a young audience
Warten auf Godot.
in mind? Or is it not? Is it unimportant? Is it?
In one level, I don't think there are any differences. The thing which is the main thing for me is that the writer should write something they are filled of, and if they don't reach their audience, they had to rewrite it. So that's my feeling. And actually, I came from a meeting in Stockholm 2 days ago, and all the people who is doing theater for children were gathered, and there were a lot of scientists there. And the only thing I learned from this session was that the scientists always said that if you think you know what you're going to tell them, you are probably on the wrong way. I mean, they want to discuss serious stuff. They want to do something which is real. They don't want to hear something which is nonsense, because that's the thing, TV and radio, and they are filled with it. So if someone takes them seriously, that's the main goal, I think. And you can't, I can't, as a director, try to be on a children's level. I mean, I don't do that. I'm doing these kind of shows. For instance, last week we were playing at the Stockholm Municipal Theatre, one show, and we have sold very little tickets for children. I think there were 5 or 7 in the audience, but it was probably 40 adults. And at that time, we needed some kind of treatment, because they were shocked over that we were doing Schlafenfische, a German play about a 10-year-old girl who had lost her younger brother. And I'm sure that the actress, she did the same thing as she always does. But the people who received the show, I mean, it was kind of remarkable for me, because in some kind of I was really satisfied, because this audience who came to see the show, they took it like it was real theater. I mean, you never have this feeling when you're doing theater for children. You will always know that you never will get the big reviews. You never will get the big fame or the big money when you're doing theater for children. But some of the actors, and that's a different thing in Sweden, some of the actors could go from doing a children play for kids for 5 years to do the next part will be Hedda Gabler or something. And that, I think that's amazing. I think we have come a bit like when people are taking that children's theatre so seriously.
I want to also ask Teresa and the audience, but you have a quick comment, I think, or a brief
Yeah,
comment.
just a comment, because that's not contradictory to what I say, actually. But I think that we as people working in children's theatre should take care not to be trapped in that thing. That it should be childish, or there's something called a children's level for what is being done. Because that's exactly how adult theatre looks at children's theatre, and most of the adult audience would look at children's theatre. That children's theatre, even if it is not written like that, performed like that, is pedagogical theatre. So that's what we hear all the time. So we should take very much care not to get trapped in that. So I say proudly, yes, I write for young people. I write specifically for children when I write. Not like, yes, that's all I can do, but that's what I want to do. But not underestimating, respecting them and all that. Of course I do, because they are our audience.
And I think also we should try and get to grips a little bit more what does that mean. because it's an easy thing to say, I write for everybody and I write for children. But what does that entail to do that writing for that specific audience? But I just want to give Teresa a chance to comment.
I definitely think there is a place of writing for young people, and I think a lot has been said already here. So it's about when we say we produce challenging theatre for young people, is exactly what we mean. Is the opening up, and actually there's a sentence that we like very much that is from our partners, the paneldebatter, when they say we make theatre for young people and the adults in their lives. And we really love that so much that I must say we nicked it for our funding application because it is brilliant, and it's just the thing that yes, you have your audience of young people in mind, but it's broader than that. And at the same time, though, when I'm not a director, I'm a dramaturg and a programmer, so when I see things that we want to produce, well, then I open it up. It doesn't have to be something that has been written for young people, but then, of course, it's something that has already been written, and something like Sadness and Joy in the Lives of Giraffes. I mean, I think it's a wonderful play. It hasn't been written for young people, but it definitely has a place in young people's theatre, and I think it should be seen by as many young people as possible. So, in terms of programming and producing, I think the two things coexist. Yeah.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to just contribute in some way or put some kind of perspective on this from their point of view?
My thought is, hello, can everybody hear me now? My thought is that it's about, in my mind, it's often about content, and it's about which stories we tell. Because I think if you're telling a story that is very much about two adults and their relationship in some way, for example, they may have experiences, far into a marriage or whatever, that may be difficult to understand if it's not a process that you yourself have been through. That would very much be adult theatre. If you place a young person in that play who can look at their relationship from a young person's point of view, it'll become accessible in a different kind of way to a young audience. So I think saying that you write for young audiences, it is about perspective, and it's about the characters you put in your play, or the way in which you invite your audience to look at the things that are happening on stage. That's my proposal.
I totally agree with that. There's one thing that I think is another trapping that sometimes you have in theatre for young people, that you absolutely need to have a young person as a character or a child as a character, which I think, I think the themes, yes, have to relate, but it doesn't mean that if you do not have a young person as a character, young people do not relate to it. And I'm not saying you were saying that, but I think, that's something that I see a lot as perception and what people think, and I just think that,
I wanted to add a new perspective on that issue, or to bring a new issue on that thing about the writing for the audience and the perspectives of the audience. In Germany, the main discussion, the very hot burning discussion now, is how to open the theaters for the so-called migrant communities, which are absolutely excluded in the institutions and as an audience. We are now opening the institutions for actors and dramaturgs and writers who have another background, but the audience is still a biological German middle-class audience. We had that yesterday also. And in Berlin, there's, for the first time, there are many discussions about that, and it's not everything perfect, but the first state theater, it's called the Maxim Gorki Theater, is now driven by a Turkish artistic director, Turkish-German artistic director, who's doing something like the post-migrant theater, and opened a theater, a whole state theater, the holy temple of the German culture, to the migrants by having new perspectives on the Chekhov plays, on the modern plays, by having new artists, new directors, new actors, and what we see is that a totally exchange of audience is happening. They really say, the communities in Berlin, from Turkish Arabic communities say, now we have a house where we are represented, where our issues are dealt. And so it is absolutely sold out, but with totally other people than ever have been before in the German theater. So this is something we are now in the moment discussing, and this changes the stories, because we have to put not only perspective from children or from adults, but also perspectives from different cultures on the issue of childhood and youth. And this is a new challenge that we are just starting to have.
But it's interesting because sometimes I know it from Brussels, where everybody tries that. But the most successful things is that we get the hell out, that we go away, and that we give, like you said, we give a theater to somebody of a different background and let them make their own mistake and make their own things. Because the problem is all the time that, and I'm including myself, so I'm not excluding myself, the problem is all the time that we, with our knowledge of dramaturgy, of this and that, are ahead of them. Are saying, you have to do this, maybe you can do this like this and this like that. And I think if you really want that, then you just have to say, half of my programming, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not going to say if it's good or if it's not good, I'm just going to give it to somebody and just do it for 2 years, and then we'll talk further. And I think what I need, it needs a radical choice, not a choice like a little bit of choice. Get one actor in, that one director in, that won't change anything.
And the person is Lisbeth Kolter from teatermakere, from the Dutch theatre teatermakere. And we will hear more from you later, but I just wanted people to know who you were. Stefan.
No.
Yeah. You wanted to say something?
No.
No. Okay. Do you want to say something?
Wanted to say something.
Yeah, but now I forgot what it was. I think it was to Einstein, because when we're talking about what can be put on stage and what will interest a young audience, almost everything, as Anna said, almost everything. I made many years ago an opera for children, and in that opera there are two characters, and they are both pensioners. They're very old people, and they live side by side in two flats. And even Grips did that.
Even? What means even?
Yes,
of course, it was a wonderful play.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
so no young characters, just two old people.
At all, and it's for very young people, like from 8 years to and upwards, and it's two people about 70 that they see on stage. Because what theatre is very good at is actually relations between people and feelings and so on. And that's what we do also when we put on stage a 50 years old actor. He cannot play, he cannot pretend a 5-year-old boy. But he can show the feelings because he knows it. He knows it, and he can, as an actor, show them. And that will be recognizable, though everybody can see he's not 5 years. So we should not try to play 5 years, but he should show us the emotions of a 5-year-old boy. And that's what theatre is very good at. So I think you can do anything, if you know how, of course, and particularly for young people. Why? Why is it something we want to show young people? That's a big question.
It's a big question, and I think maybe there we are at the core, because we do want to make theatre for young people, but at the same time that we present the idea of it must be a theme that's interesting for them, and the answer is that any theme can be interesting for them, and then we say, okay, but it should be a young person that they can, like Øystein said, that they can relate to, that can sort of be the agent between them and the world, and then you say, no, it could be two pensioners, but still it is written or done for them. And then again, I think we return to the same sort of where we started. It's like a circle discussion in a way. And I don't think that in a way there is a beginning or an end. It just is a continuous discussion that the theatre world has to go through. I mean, even I think there's not even a law against theatre being pedagogical. I mean, it could still be You can learn something and it can still be good art. I mean, so this is why it's so difficult to grasp what it is that we're doing when we're making a festival of theatre for young people, and that's why it's so important to discuss it. I think we should just end trying to say something about the situation we are in now, because I think it's different making theatre for young people today than it was in the 70s or in the 80s or in the 90s, even 10 years ago. Stefan, you came out very strongly and said, we don't have the time. There are so many big issues, there's so many big problems to be solved now that, you know, we really have to take this seriously. That's why we want to make theatre that children understand. That was your words, wasn't it? It's quite, what do you mean by that? What is it that is so urgent right now? Is it only the matter of the audiences that you don't reach because they're migrants or poor or outside of the theatre field? Or is it something else that's burning? In a European sense, do you think?
For me, there are two issues that I'm concerned with. The one is that even we as adults have, or many people that I'm talking with, artists, have the feeling that the complexity of society, of life in a global world, even we don't understand it anymore. So how can we make theater out of it? How can we explain? How can we show the Zusammenhänge,
the connections.
The connections. How can we show the connections if we even don't understand what's going on? So we have the same questions like the children or the young people in a way. So we always said the Gripstheater is encouraging people to change something. But actually in the moment now, for me, it's the question of encouraging people to face complexity in the world. This is for us. So the plays have to be different, have to be more complex. The answers have to be complex. The questions have to be complex. So this is one big issue for me. How can we do that without telling to the people it is hopeless? We even don't understand, so don't try it. So try to understand what's going on, because it will influence your life. And we are on the same level. We are on the same trying to understand something. And in that context, it might be. There was a big article in a German theater magazine talking about we are in the European countries and the economical, well-situated countries, and the problems we are causing are mostly not in our countries, but in other parts of the world. But this is very, very difficult to write plays about globalization and about global problems, because this is about systems and not about people and human destinies. So there's a big, big issue. How can we in the future have the whole world in our mind when we write plays? So complexity and globalization are, for me, unsolved question that theatre for young audience has to challenge with.
When Øystein contacted me and we started talking about this festival, he said also there was a feeling, a connection between the plays, a sort of a feeling of a lack of a future. Some historians talk about a time of process, that even when we talk about history right now, we don't really talk about the past, we don't really talk about the future, or look at the future. We're talking about what's going on right now, and then we hope it's going to turn out well. You can't do anything about the past, and the future is sort of out of sight. I mean, is this the kind of feeling that you can associate with, or?
In Grips, we try to, the basic of the Gripstheater is to make researches. And researches doesn't mean to go to the school class and try to understand how the children are thinking. This is also part of, because I think it's not forbidden to try to understand children or youth people as a basis of your work. But on the other hand, there are so many political alternative roots that are trying to do something else, to live in a different way, like the mainstream is telling us. And these roots, to understand what's going on, mostly young people are trying to do some things in concrete, changing their lives to be more sustainable in their lives. So this is what we have to see first, and then maybe we can make theater out of these impulses, which is absolutely not hopeless.
You go to reality.
It goes to the future.
You say you go to reality and take it into the theater.
Check reality and then come back. and make art of it.
I feel like right now we are approaching a very interesting debate, and I don't know why we only have 10 minutes left and we have to have dinner. I think it's pointless, but that's the thing. But could we imagine just going a little bit over time? Do you think that's okay? Yeah. We have some questions from the audience too. I think this is a thing we should not rush with. Shanti.
Everybody hear? I was thinking a little bit about what you were saying now, the real current issues in terms of who has, how you will empower and who will be empowered in terms of the work, and thinking a little bit historically, because about 25 years ago, when I organised the Festival of New Writing, a European festival, one of the discussions that came up, very similar today, about new writing and who's doing it. There was a big discussion about the need, wanting to change, and there are various strategies over many years. You say it's the issue now, which Grips is really looking at, where there's been a sustained plan and strategy to try and make those changes over the last, for example, 25 years in terms of who writes, how do we make the work for young people, who has access to it, who has the resources to it, and the power structures within that. And the similar debate really was talking about the status, which has also come up today. What's the status of working for young people, working in theatre for young people today? And those power things are quite interesting, because I remember a discussion very similar to today, where there's a discussion about changing that, strangely, the whole world of young people's theatre and often writing is dominated, this is 25 years ago, by white men, who are both writing, directing, producing, and leading these artistic organisations. And it's very interesting to see what happens in terms, because this was a genuine, this happened, and the plan was discussed, and there's a whole range of work and a whole that has happened and that has changed. But the issues which you were talking about, I'd be very interested to see what happens, and I mean how long, what sort of strategies and change and empowerment will take place for young people and for other artists in terms of producing and making work for young people. It will be interesting to see.
I'm now taking the questions or the comments from the audience, and then we'll do a round at the end, so everybody has a chance to say it. Please remember if there's anything you want to
What was the question?
Yeah.
Would it be interesting to see? Maybe the question should be, how will you change that empowerment?
I think it is she wants to hear if you have a. I think it should go to everybody really. What is the strategy for doing something with this empowerment, and also. I think also there's a rhetoric question. If it is like this, that theatre for children and young are dominated by middle-aged white males, how can we change that? Am I right?
I think we have a problem with time. We should leave the stage. Oh yeah.
Doesn't mean that we should get back to that. Well, we'll have to, during dinner we'll have a really big one on that one.
Yeah, I was just curious about different scenic strategies in work in theatre for children and youth, because here now I think a lot of the plays that we see in Perth has been quite similar also in the form, in the shape.
Very similar.
And I don't know if I misunderstood you when you talked, but when you said this about now we have the act, and you were also talking about the new scenic strategies, the performance strategies and post-dramatic, and which still are quite new, at least in Norway, or at least in the big theatre houses. And yeah, I was curious to hear about more about that. How does also new scenic strategies work in theatre with children and youth, and are there possibilities there you can develop further?
Are you also asking, is this the sort of dominant trend that we have these, not language-based plays, but plays that sort of move between monologues and small scenes and then longer scenes and monologues and sort of commenting?
Yeah, from the program here, it could seem like
it looks
that.
like it, yeah, I agree. I don't know your name.
Michael? Yeah, I was just thinking about what you said about the world today being complex and it's hard for young people to understand their place in it all and to understand the world around them in a way. And then I think maybe now more than ever, theatre has to be a kind of a creative reflection space for young people to help them to understand the world. It's hard for me to give one example, but I write a lot about theatre for children, and the performances that I've seen for the last 2-3 years that really, for me, works, and I can see it in the audience that it works for the young people as well. Teenagers now, mostly, is doing that, trying to helping them to understand the world today, you know. And maybe also taking them very seriously in the process from early on, that they are kind of really the subject from the starting point. You know what I mean? That's the opposition to having good intentions, sitting, writing on your own. I don't know. Of course, it's going to be brilliant playwrights as well.
Can I just ask you, when you write, who do you write for? Just something place you write for?
Different scenes,
which is the webpage for Norwegian theatre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shakespeare.
Yes, which is a more academic brilliant, won a big prize recently for being a Shakespeare magazine. I think we can translate it. We could go more in depth and write a lot of articles that sort of go more deeper into the material than you can in newspaper format. Can you say something? In what way do you feel that you've reached the audience? When you say that you reached the audience, what does that mean? Is it kind of a...
It's hard. It's hard to say, but it's like there's this dramatician called Norwegian, and she has, I don't know if she's maybe one of the people in Norway that work with this method, that she invites young people to collaborate with the text writing. And I saw this performance in Møte
facing what's lost.
Yeah. And we have a collaboration with her, the texts, which was about loss, pretty much. And it was for me as an audience, but I'm not for the young, I think for the young people it was really a learning process. It was like me learning something about how it is to be young today, because I don't know anymore. You know, the world has changed. I'm not like 70, but still the world has changed since I was 15. So
it's a result of a highly skilled, very good playwright who takes her skills in meeting with young people, and together they make this material.
Yeah.
So it's devised, but it's still a playwright who sort of holds the
exactly. And there's something in that I find very fascinating, because I think it becomes like a reflection between the young people on stage and the young people watching it, and a common kind of understanding.
So what you're saying, I'm just trying to sort of make this into a sort of understandable circle that we can use for something that actually becomes a tool. So you're saying that this could be a strategy for developing text that can do what you're asking for.
I believe that very much, but I'm not, how you say it, it's my, after watching a lot of plays.
It's a bit similar to what you're saying, that we go to the reality and then we go back and
we go back in order to give the playwright, the author, must get a burning question. Otherwise, you can't make artistic work. So it's not about research like a newspaper, like understanding, but giving an impulse from the reality to the author's heart, and then he can start writing. But what you say is also, there are many new forms about co-creation. We can call it co-creation. It means that the playwright is not the only person in the creative process. He's just to put documentary things in the development of play. This is also about formal strategies. To put research elements from the whole ensemble. The director is a very, very important partner of the playwright.
And we're going to talk about the next conversation we're going to have is going to be about the rise onto the playwright.
The playwright is not anymore the godfather who's giving us a text, but he has to have a network to be connected with the artist and with the reality.
It's very interesting because now we have to make a bridge into the next conversation we're going to have on stage. So please, we're going to really take this into our next debate and keep these thoughts in mind when we have this discussion, and we can really have like a round discussion with the audience as well. Henning, I saw you.
Just a very quick question. What do you see the role of technology being in children's theatre? And
is that for everybody?
whoever wants to base it.
Because I'll keep that on the plate. I just want to ask Teresa, because Company of Angels, they commission plays, right? A little bit, and you also have a prize. Yeah.
We do lots of plays in translation, so we choose plays that have already been written, and we do commission plays. I mean, in terms of co-creation, it's not co-creation, but a project we've done recently that others started was called The Commissioners, and it was, bringing playwrights into schools and having conversations with young people and getting commissioned by them to write a play of what was close to their heart, and then, the play would be written. It was short plays and rapidly sponsored by Showtime, and then the writer would go back with the first draft of the script, and the children and young people would act as dramaturs on the play, and then they would get performed by professionals, and actually it would more to be a planet, which would be part of the other category, which Adam has written. Was one of those, but we have a whole collection of them. But in a way, I think this is one approach. I think there are. I mean, I think the thing is there are many approaches of making theatre for young people, and they're all valid. I mean, I think complexity is a very important thing. I mean, just kind of to mirror the complexity that there is, not shy away from asking questions, and even if there are no answers, I think that's fine. I think another key thing in terms of strategy is getting as many artists, theatre makers from as many disciplines as possible interested in looking at young people are the key audience and someone they want to make theatre for. Yeah.
Yes, you had a comment?
Well, it was a comment to you because what you're saying about that kind of co-writing or what we say is very much in line with the tendency that's coming up again. Like you said, the wheel turns around, and now we're at the same point again. The participatory theatre, which has become extremely popular now again. I mean, that was what old farts like me did in the 70s. I mean, and now it's coming up again in the same way. But you have to have the audience involved in what is happening, also in writing and so on. Personally, I don't like it very much. I must say I seldom do research when I write. Seldom talk to people and say, how do you feel? What do you feel? What kind of person are you? Very seldom. But that's different from writer to writer, what works for you. So
again, we're going to return to that in the next debate. So I think it's very interesting that you are already thinking about it, because I think then we can have quite an interesting discussion at the end also, when we can take all these comments and take them in to the next discussion. Anders, I mean, do you want to answer any of these questions?
Absolutely. I have all the answers now.
Thank God.
You have been longing for. I mean, I think like this. I think theatre is a main force for humanism. And that's the most important thing for me. We have an audience, a very colorful audience now, beautiful audience. And sometimes we can do plays which reach everyone. But sometimes we maybe should do just a play who reach just one in the audience. And my feeling was when I was young, I was a lonely person. And when I saw things which I thought they're sharing something with me which I thought I was lonely about. That's the main goal for me. I mean, we should do plays who make us understand how it is to be a human being, much more than the whole world. I mean, that's a lot, the whole world. But could we manage to do that's fine. But first, how it is to be a human being. How to tell how it could be to grow up nowadays. How it is to have a mother or father or sister or brother or, I mean, that's the main goal. And there are so many interesting issues. I think the main problem for me now, when I look back on what I have done, I could feel a little bit sad about it because I really want to make the audience laugh much more. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. If you can laugh, it's great. I mean, laugh against all problems, and it's easier to deal with them later.
I think
that's the question. That's the answer.
Yes, I think we
Make
have
them
to
laugh.
have to end on that note.